They said this one would be calm. No politics, no jabs, just a feel-good tribute interview with Hollywood royalty. That was the plan, until the first question landed like a gut punch. Joy Behar smiled as she shuffled her blue cards on the desk. "Sly," she began, casually, "you've played a lot of heroes, a lot of fighters. What does the word masculinity mean to you today?" Sylvester Stallone in his signature half-gravel, half-grin voice. Gave a shrug. "Same thing it meant when I started. You stand up, you protect your family, you fight your own fights." He wasn't trying to provoke, not yet, but that word masculinity wasn't just a word anymore. Not in that room, not to Joy. She tilted her head. "So nothing's changed, not even after everything the world's been through." Sly paused, laughed under his breath. "I'm not here to rewrite biology." A hush flickered through the audience. Joy kept her smile, but her eyes had narrowed, and that's when she leaned in. "I just find it interesting that someone with your platform still clings to those kinds of outdated roles." Outdated, that word hit like a slap. Stallone straightened in his chair, his jaw tensed. "You calling me a dinosaur?" Joy didn't blink. "I'm saying the world's moved forward. Maybe it's time Rambo did too." The laugh from the crowd was sharp, uneasy. Half were with her, the other half, holding their breath. Stallone's fingers tapped once on the table. He gave a tight nod. "I see, you brought me on to be a punching bag." Joy raised her eyebrows, cool as glass. "I brought you on because people respect you, but that respect comes with responsibility." There it was, the line, and Sly wasn't stepping around it. He was walking straight through it. The energy shifts. It was supposed to be about his new movie, a nostalgia piece. An old-school action flick with the twist, gritty, raw, and honest. But that script was now crumpled and burning at the edge of the table. "Let me tell you something," Sly said, voice suddenly sharper. "I've been in this game for 50 years. I've taken hits, made mistakes, but I don't take lectures from someone who's never thrown a punch." The audience gasped. Joy's smile froze. That wasn't a line. That was war. Joy fires back. "Throwing a punch is easy." She shot back. "Changing your mindset, that's the hard part. That's what real strength looks like." Stallone leaned forward. "You want a mindset change? Maybe don't ambush people in front of a live audience." Joy snapped. "This is the view, Sylvester. If you wanted a silent press junket, you booked the wrong show." The tension thickened. You could hear the silence, feel the weight of each breath. What was happening wasn't a debate. It was an unraveling. Two titans, two belief systems, and neither would yield. Cracks in the armor. "Look, I grew up in a world where men didn't cry, where you sucked it up and got it done," Stallone said, more measured now. "And maybe that screwed some of us up. I'd admit that. But you want to throw away everything that made us who we are." Joy's tone softened, but only slightly. "I want people to heal, not hide behind characters they played 30 years ago." "You don't know what I've had to hide behind," he said, his voice rougher now. "You don't know what that armor cost." Joy stared at him. Something flickered. Recognition, sympathy, but she didn't back down. "And maybe it's time you took it off." The line is crossed. The crowd was locked in now, fully divided. Some sat upright, nodding at Joy's words. Others leaned towards Stallone like loyal soldiers at war. Then Joy played her last card. "You once said in an interview that men today are too soft. Do you stand by that?" "I do," Stallone said, "because being soft doesn't save you. It doesn't save your family. It doesn't save your soul." Joy nodded slowly. "Maybe that's why so many men are drowning and no one's throwing them a rope." Silence. And then Stallone stood up. Just like that. No theatrics, no warning. He pushed his chair back and stood. Eyes locked on Joy. "You want your moment? You got it?" Walking away, Joy said, half a challenge, half disbelief. "No," Stallone said, voice iron. "I'm leaving with my dignity." He didn't wait for applause. He didn't wait for commercial break. He walked out, stayed left, no script, no comeback. And behind him, a storm that hadn't even fully begun. The chair was still spinning. Sylvester Stallone had just walked off. Joy Behar sat frozen in the silence, lips parted, hands gripping the table like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. The audience didn't know whether to clap, gasp, or follow him out the door. It wasn't just a dramatic exit. It was a rupture, one that no commercial break could clean up. And the echo of it, his words, his walkout, was already making waves. Backstage, producers scrambled, phones lit up, social feeds exploded. Stalin instance of #The View Meltdown #Behar versus Stallone. That this wasn't about trends anymore. This was personal. Backstage, The fire spree at Stallone paced the narrow hallway, his face unreadable, but his fists clenched. His longtime publicist, Karen, was trying to steady him. "Sly, we can spin this. You think this is about spin?" He sapped. They didn't want an interview. They wanted a damn bloodbath. Karen hesitated. It was the view. You knew it wouldn't be soft or questions. He stopped walking. "No, I expected fire. I didn't expect betrayal." He wasn't talking about the producers. He was talking about Joy. Because years ago, when his son passed, Joy had written him a private note, a rare moment of compassion, of quiet humanity. And now she'd thrown that man back into the Colosseum and fed him to the lions. The table divided back on stage. The other CO hosts whispered among themselves. Sonny leaned toward Joy. "That was rough." Joy exhaled sharply. He came in swinging. "But did you have to go there with the soft man comment?" Joy turned. He doubled down on it. "I gave him the chance to evolve. He chose ego over empathy." VP, unusually quiet until now, spoke up. "I've known Stallone a long time. He's not a bad man. But that armor, it runs deep." Joy did respond, because deep down, she knew this wasn't just about masculinity or generational values. This was about power. Who holds it, who defines it, and who gets to challenge it without consequence. The audience Thursby noon. Twitter had become a battlefield. Some called Joy brave, others called her a bully. Some said Stallone proved why old-school masculinity was broken. Others said he was ambushed for ratings. Clips of the confrontation looped endlessly, stripped of nuance, weaponized by both sides. But the most viral post, a photo, Stallone mid-walk, jaw clenched, suit rumpled, captioned, "Sometimes leaving is louder than yelling." It had millions of likes, and just one comment from a verified user that stopped everyone cold. That wasn't acting. That was pain. Arnold Schwarzenegger center breaks his silence every evening. Stallone released a statement. Not through PR, not through agents, but through a grainy, front-facing video from his kitchen. He looked tired. "Real, I've been in this business long enough to know when a conversation isn't a conversation, it's a setup. I walked out because I've buried too many friends who kept their pain locked behind their ribs. I walked out because being a man doesn't mean swallowing disrespect." He paused. "And I walked out because there's a difference between being challenged and being shamed." It wasn't slip, it wasn't rehearsed. But it hit like a gut punch, and it lit the fuse for the next explosion. Joy's countermoff the next day. Joy opened the View with no banter. No jokes. Just a quiet statement. "We had Mr. Stallone on yesterday. Things didn't go as planned, but I want to clarify something for him. And for the viewers, I never intended to shame. I intended to question. That's what we do here." She paused. "I respect his legacy, but legacy isn't immunity." The applause was light, measured, because the audience wasn't sure anymore. Had she gone too far? Or had he just finally snapped after a lifetime of carrying a version of manhood that no longer fit? The letter that changed everything that night. Stallone received a letter, handwritten, no return address, just 5 words across the top. "I saw you. I get it." The handwriting was familiar, old, strong. It was from Clint Eastwood. Inside was a note. "They're not ready to hear from men like us anymore, but that doesn't mean we stop speaking. You didn't walk out, you walked through." See, Stallone read it twice, then picked up his phone and dialed. "Get me a slot on Joe Rogan," he said. "I'm not done." The storm is far from over. Joy, meanwhile, received something too. A message from her daughter, just one sentence. "MRM, did you mean it?" That question haunted her, because she didn't know anymore. Had she meant to crack Stallone open? Or had she just wanted to in the room? And now, with the world watching, the next move would define everything. This wasn't a spat anymore. It was a war of legacies, of values, of what happens when two worlds collide, and neither flinches. 3 days had passed. The world hadn't moved on. If anything, the silence had sharpened. The walkout wasn't just viral anymore. It had become a litmus test for culture, for identity, for legacy. And both of theirs, Stallone's and Behar's, were under siege, not from each other anymore, but from the world they'd once ruled. Backlash. Bruce at a press junket in Miami. Stallone was asked about the controversy again. This time, it wasn't just the entertainment blogs, CNN, BBC, Sky News. He didn't snap. He didn't deflect. He just smiled, slow and quiet. "People are finally having a conversation. That's a win." But his eyes said something different, because beneath the composed mask, Something was unraveling. His daughters had caught him that morning, not to comfort, not to support, but to ask, "Dad, did you mean what you said about weakness?" And that question had landed harder than Joy's jab, because no matter how many boxing rings he'd survived, no punch had leaked out from your own blood. Joy, meanwhile, was spiraling in a different way. She wasn't used to backlash lasting this long. Usually her name trended for 24 hours, a meme, a punchline, a minor fire. But this was something darker. She'd gotten death threats, letters. Even her fellow CEO hosts had grown distant. Hoopy stopped returning calls, and Sunny asked for some space. Even ABC had summoned her to a tone meeting. She sat in her dressing room staring at herself in the mirror. Not to check makeup, but to look deeper. And what she saw scared her, because there was a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Regret to invitation. Two things happened. One, Joe wrote Ned a full Stallone interview. Two, Joy was invited to sit down with Oprah. Both were nuclear. Stallone's interview at first.it wasn't fiery. It was intimate. I've played a lot of tough guys, but no script ever prepared me for losing my son. He said, voice cracking, "I get asked all the time what it means to be strong, and I always said, protect, provide, endure. But lately, I wonder, was I just hiding?" Roker leaned in, and the view. Stallone looked off, eyes glassy. I think Joy saw the armor, but she never stopped to ask why it was welded on. Oprah paused. No punchesto. Nights later, Joy sat across from Oprah. It was not friendly. "Why did you push that hard?" Oprah asked. Joy tried to smile, but it collapsed halfway. "I thought I was pushing for clarity, for truth. I didn't expect collapse." "Do you think you misjudged him?" Joy hesitated. "I think I judged him through the lens of the world I fight for. And maybe I forgot he came from a different battlefield." The audience was quiet. Oprah was not. "Or maybe you forgot he's human." Collision courses that weekend. Both interviews aired back-to-back across streaming platforms. The Stallone-Behar clash was suddenly reframed not as a petty celebrity feud, but as a cultural reckoning. Masculinity, age, pain, grief, power. Both sides had bared their wounds, and America, it couldn't look away. And invitations in Stallone's publicist got the call first.it was from The View, not a ratings grab, not a trap, but a single sentence relayed by the executive producer. "Tell him, if he's willing to talk, the chair is still warm." Taran showed Sly the message. He read it once, then again, then folded it, and slipped it into his pocket. The message that changed Joy Behar, meanwhile, sat at home going through old fan mail. She never did this. Too many crazes, too many attacks. But something pulled her there that night. One envelope, no return address, just her name. Inside was a clipping, an old headline from 1989. Comedian Joy Behar uses laughter to survive single motherhood, and on the back, scribbled in pen, "Don't lose the woman who used pain to build bridges. You're better than cheap shots." Joy stared at it. Her hands shook, because it was her own handwriting. She had written it to herself decades ago, back when she still believed comedy could heal instead of wound. That night, both of them, Stallone and Behar, made a choice, not for ratings, not for image, but because somewhere between the scars and silence, they both realized something. This wasn't about masculinity or feminism or talk shows. It was about legacy, what they leave behind when the applause fades. The chair was still warm. That's what the message said. And now, for the first time in weeks, it was true, because Stallone had just stepped onto the set of The View again. No press, no promotion, just a whisper through the industry that something was about to happen. The producers kept it under wraps. No audience, no applause, just a closed set, 3 chairs, 2 of them filled, the third, empty, waiting. A silence, though loud, it trembled. Joy Behar sat in her seat, spine rigid, legs crossed. She hadn't worn red. She always wore red, but today she wore gray, not for fashion, not for neutrality, for mourning, for what she might lose, or maybe, what she already had. Stallone walked in black leather jacket, same slow gait. The man looked like a statue carved from regret and resolve. He didn't sit right away. He just stood there, staring at her. Joy finally broke the silence. "Still hard to look at me." Stallone's eyes didn't blink. "No, just trying to remember. If this is the same woman who laughed when I said I used to write poetry." She winced. It was fair. Then he sat, and everything that followed didn't feel like television. It felt like confession. The first blow doesn't land. Joy leaned forward. I've been thinking about that day. Stallone said nothing. I pushed you to open up, then mobbed the moment you did. That wasn't journalism. That was cruelty. Still nothing. I lost sight of the person in front of me. She finally looked him in the eyes. I'm sorry. And for the first time in a long time, Joy meant it. Stallone didn't nod, didn't flinch. He just spoke quiet, low, like a man reading from scars. I grew up in a house where crying got you locked outside, where failure meant a fist, where being a man meant pretending it didn't hurt when it did. He looked down. I spent 60 years becoming untouchable, and in 5 minutes you made me feel like I was back on that porch. Joy blinked hard. I didn't know. That's the problem, he said. Nobody ever does. Then, Stallone said something he'd never told anyone. I wrote a script once. Not Rocky, not Rambo, just me. No fights, no heroes, just a man who loses his son and has to live with the echo. Joy's breath caught. He didn't wait for her to ask. I never showed it to anyone, not even my wife. He tapped the table once. I buried it the day Sage died. Joy's voice was trembling. You were trying to heal. He nodded, and you were trying to make a headline. Silence again. But this time, it didn't slice. It held. Joy leaned in. When I was 23, my ex left me with a baby and nothing else. No money, no friends. I slept on couches, throat chokes on bar napkins. She exhaled. People laughed at the pain, so I let them. I used it, turned it into armor. She looked away, almost ashamed. I guess I forgot the difference between tough and cruel. Stallone studied her. You weren't cruel. You were scared. Joy turned back, startled. You remind me of me, he said. And that's what pissed me off the most. No one interrupted. Not the producers, not the CO hosts, not a single voice behind the cameras. Because something was happening that TV rarely captured. 2 icons, 2 lives, 2 decades of bitterness, pride, survival all melting under the weight of their own humanity. Finally, Stallone broke it. I didn't come here to fight. Joy nodded. And I didn't come here to win. He smirked. That'd be a first. She almost smiled. Don't ruin the moment, Sly. The line that changed everything. Then Joy asked something no one expected. Do you think men are allowed to be weak? Stallone tilted his head. No. Joy's eyes flared, but he wasn't done. I think men should be allowed, but the world doesn't allow it. And the tragedy is we stopped asking for permission. Joy whispered. So what now? And then, in the most un-Stallone moment possible, he said, I don't want to be a statue anymore. They didn't hug. There was no grand reconciliation. No viral moment engineered. But when the segment ended, Stallone stood, paused, looked Joy in the eye, and said, I'm walking out again, but not because of you, because I've said everything I needed to say. And this time, he smiled. Joy stood too, and said quietly, next time, bring the poetry. He nodded and walked out. But this time, there was no anger in his stride. No tension in his shoulders, just peace. That clip aired 2 days later, uncut, raw. The world watched it in silence. No screaming, no cancelling, no side picking, just 2 people letting their walls fall. For the first time, the comment sections weren't filled with outrage but reflection. One comment said it best. We came for a fight. We stayed for the truth. We left, changed. If this story made you feel something, share it. Not because it's viral, but because someone you love might be hiding behind armor too. The implosion is over, and maybe so is the silence.